Lots of people think buying lumber is confusing.
And they're right.
Wandering around a big box store, seeing all those boards wrapped in plastic, it can feel like you need a secret decoder ring just to figure it out. Is this the best wood for my project? Am I paying too much? What does all this terminology mean? Are they speaking a different language?
But what if we can make lumber buying simple?
What if you could walk into a store and know exactly what to look for, ask the right questions, and leave feeling confident you made the best choice?
I know you can relate.
Here at K&J Lumber, we have a combined 50 years of experience supplying lumber to our customers locally here in Minnesota. Today, we're gonna make lumber buying easy for you. We'll break down the basics, show you what to look for, and give you a basic plan for getting the lumber you need for your next project. No more confusion, no more guessing, let's go. Here at K&J Lumber, we sell two different types of lumber to our retail customers. We got our rough sawn, fresh cut green lumber from our sawmill, and then there's the kiln-dried finished grade lumber here in our kiln-dried warehouse. Now, some of the suppliers near you may only have one or the other, so you gotta pay attention and ask them to see if they have what you're looking for. Both the kiln-dried and the rough sawn lumber offer unique advantages that you're not gonna find in big box store lumber. So what are the advantages? The pros and cons? Which one of these is gonna be right for my project? We'll get to that in a minute here, and we're also gonna set you up with this complete lumber buying action plan later on at the end of the video. It's the most important section of the video, in my opinion, one that I think you'll get the most value out of. But before any of that stuff, I want you to check out this mess right here. Look at that disaster. There's a reason why this project went wrong. And it all comes down to the first and most crucial tip of this entire video. We're talking about moisture content. Trust me when I say you're gonna wanna pay attention to this now so you don't have to pay big time later on. Kiln-dried lumber should have a moisture content between 6 and 9% for indoor use here in Minnesota. Here in Minnesota, the environmental moisture content tends to fluctuate up and down throughout the seasons. In the summertime, the humidity skyrockets with the heat, and with the cold, dry winters, you can safely assume that the moisture content will plummet down below normal levels. And that plays a big role in the type of lumber you choose and the applications you use it for. This is critical because if the wood is too wet when you build indoors, it will shrink and move as it continues to dry in your home, leading to cracks, warping, twisting, cupping, basically wasting your hard-earned money. Always ask your lumber supplier about the moisture content of the wood that you're about to buy, especially for things like hardwood or really anything that's going to go into your home. You're going to want him to take the moisture meter and physically show you what the moisture content of the wood is, like this. These suppliers should have a moisture meter on hand to show you the moisture content of the lumber you're about to buy. But just in case, if not, I will link some moisture meters in the description below. You can just go down there, head to Amazon, check them out if you want. If not, it's fine. We earn a small commission on anything that you buy using one of our links, so thanks in advance. And speaking of moisture content, this reminds me of this valuable tip. Buy your lumber as early as possible and let the lumber sit in the area you plan to build in. Even kiln-dried lumber isn't guaranteed. It needs time to adjust to the humidity in your home. Wood naturally takes in or loses moisture, which makes it expand or shrink over time. Trust me, brother, you want that movement to happen before you build, not after. So by giving your lumber a week or so to acclimate, you prevent a lot of heartache in the long run. Now, let's get into some more of the advanced topics. And don't worry, beginners, it's not too far advanced, but still advanced enough for you experienced woodworkers to get some value from. Species like oak, maple, cherry, and walnut aren't just looks to go by. They all have their strengths and best uses. Species like walnut and cherry are on the softer side, so they're lighter and easier to work with, but they're less sturdy than, say, a white oak. Oak is much heavier than most hardwoods, so you're gonna have to do some heavy-duty framing for these heavy hardwoods like oak, maple, and hickory. Heavier woods combined with tension and moisture fluctuations can create major problems later on. Major problems. Most sawmills and lumber suppliers go by the quarters system, describing the thickness of lumber in quarters of inches. Now let's go to the whiteboard. 4/4 lumber means it's 4/4 inches thick. Get it? 4/4 lumber is anywhere from 7/8 up to a full inch thick, depending on if it's planed or not, or sometimes called 1 inch thick lumber. 5/4 lumber means it's 5/4 inches thick, or up to 1 1/4 inches. 6/4 means it's about 1 1/2 inch thick, and 8/4 lumber means it's right around and up to 2 inches thick. Keep in mind that these are general terms. Depending on whether or not the lumber is dried and planed, the actual thickness can vary, leaving you some wiggle room on true to size thickness. As you can see, 4/4 can be anywhere from 7/8, 15/16 all the way up to the full inch. 5/4 can be 3/8 up to 1.25 inches. So those are just general examples. Moving on to the behemoth in the lumber industry, lumber grades. I could literally spend the rest of this video talking about lumber grade quality, but we ain't gonna do that. Kiln-dried lumber suppliers will usually provide lumber that is select and better. The grades below that are typically used for outdoor projects or anything that doesn't require the lumber to be free of visual defects while still being structurally sound. Typically that's our rough sawn lumber. The rough sawn lumber is fresh cut, green, and often cheaper because you aren't paying for the kiln drying and milling that's required for the finished grade lumber. Now, typically you'll see us refer to these grades as either clear or rustic. Lumber that is select and better is referred to as clear, and the rustic grade is number 1, common and below. You know, the wood that has character. All of the prices that you see on the lumber price list is what's called the pile price. Since we only sort the piles by species and thickness, you can assume that these piles are going to have some clear and rustic grades mixed in. Some places like ours will let you sort through the piles to get to the very best and clearest boards, but not everyone will let you do that. But don't be surprised if they expect you to take the entire pack. Or if they let you pick through it, you can expect to pay more for taking out the best boards and leaving them with lower grades that they have to discount in order to sell. We hope you understand. Now, why is it that some of this lumber looks rough and some of it looks smooth? It has to do with the millwork that goes into it after it's dried. Our kiln-dried finished grade lumber in our warehouse is usually going to be skip planed, or sometimes called hit or miss planed. This planing is the bare minimum amount of planing, just so the high spots are removed to show you the grain, so you can decide whether or not to take it down thinner if needed. It gets you a good head start. Now, our lumber will most likely be straight lined as well to give you a reference edge. One straight edge for you to put up against your fence so you can square up the rest of the board. These options usually offer the value of control, especially if you mill your own wood. You know, be a woodworker. My jokes are bad. Bad jokes. Keep in mind that if you see lumber like this that has been planed, that usually means it's been kiln dried. Now, no one in their right mind is going to straight line and plane a board that isn't kiln dried, or at least air dried for a long time. Now, you may have heard the pros talking about board feet, but what is it? Now, most of the dad jokers out there will tell you that it's a foot that's fallen asleep. But no, seriously, most sawmills and specialty lumber suppliers usually price lumber by the board foot. It's basically a measurement of volume. A board foot is 1 inch thick, 1 foot wide, and 1 foot long. But how do we calculate board footage if each piece of lumber is not exactly 1 foot wide? Now, there's a few formulas, but the easiest one is length in inches multiplied by the width in inches multiplied by the height in inches and then divided by 144, which is how many cubic inches are in a board foot. And the resulting number is how many board feet are in one piece of lumber, or an entire stack of lumber. A quick little thing to remember is that when you're dealing with projects that require the lumber to be 1 inch thick, the board feet and square feet are the same thing. Since a board foot is already defined as 1 inch thick, you can measure the square footage and multiply that by the board footage price, and voila, you have an easy estimate of how much you're gonna pay. That's your aha moment right there, folks. Buying lumber isn't some secret ancient knowledge. It's about knowing what to look for, asking the right questions, and understanding the language and terminology. And guess what? You're speaking the lumber language now. But now you're gonna need a plan, something that makes you way more successful. Let me show you. Now that we've learned a load of new information, I'm gonna show you this quick step-by-step action plan in special order to help you remember everything, the one that I teased from earlier. First, let's start with the absolute most important tip in this entire video. Make sure you got the boss's permission. I don't need you coming back to me with a black eye asking to return all this lumber you just bought just because you didn't get approval from your wife or significant other, whatever. Number 2, call ahead. No matter what type of lumber you're buying, you're gonna wanna call ahead and make an appointment with your lumber supplier to make sure that they even have the lumber that you need in the first place. As you can see here, the lumber you need may not be accessible at the time if you show up unannounced, or may not even have what you want in the first place. So, by calling ahead, you save yourself a ton of time waiting for me to pull out the lumber you need with the forklift. Otherwise, you'd just be sitting around for about an hour while I'm pulling everything out with the forklift. Next, remember the basics. Know the project you're doing, the wood type, the grade, the moisture content, dimensions, and always inspect your lumber before leaving the yard. These are super important to you now. Number 4, and just so you don't forget this one, bring a trailer or at least a truck that can handle all of that lumber. Keep in mind that we carry a minimum of 8 and 10 foot lengths in our warehouse, and all that's gonna be pretty tough to fit inside of your Toyota Corolla. These smaller lumber suppliers that we're dealing with probably won't have the time to cut an entire stack of lumber in half for you with a circle saw so you could fit it in your car. Please plan ahead. Literally had one guy show up. He purchased 16-foot white oak lumber from us, an entire generous stack. It was a sizable stack. He wanted me to load it into the back of his truck. We managed to do that. Now it was an 8-foot truck bed with the gate down too as well. So you can imagine 16 feet in an 8-foot bed. I told him, you should have probably brought a trailer. He swore up and down he was gonna be able to do it. He took off from the yard. Sure enough, 15 minutes later, he's coming back saying,
maybe I should come back with a trailer for this load.
Sure enough, man, he came back next day with a trailer. So plan ahead, be smart. Show up with a trailer or some sizable truck or something, you know. Be reasonable, be smart. Don't make that guy's mistake. And next, don't be afraid to check to see if there are board footage discounts. It's a win-win. You get the lumber you need for your project, and the suppliers like us get rid of a lot of product at once. Bosses like it when you sell a lot of product. And the next tip. Haggling. Don't you just love it when you haggle? Do you go and haggle at McDonald's?
They'd say, oh, $10.98 for your cheeseburger.
Can we do $8.98? Can I get this cheeseburger for $7? Do I gotta pay taxes?
Yeah, you gotta pay, you gotta pay taxes, bro. I'm just gonna say this about haggling and trying to get discounted lumber and such like that, you know. I get it, I want to buy things for cheap too, but lumber suppliers like us have a margin just like any other business. Think of it like this, building a good relationship with your lumber supplier is the best way to get the best prices over time. We take care of our loyal customers. Now picture yourself ready to buy lumber. You're not just wandering aisles feeling lost. You have a plan. You understand the language. You know the grades, the moisture content, the dimensions, etiquette. You're ready to ask questions. Inspect lumber. You're making smart choices that save you time, money, and frustration. You're not just building smarter, you're buying smarter too. And now that you know how to buy lumber smarter, you're gonna need to know what type of lumber you need for your indoor and outdoor projects. And you guessed it, we made videos for both. But starting with indoor projects, we show you what we suggest is the best lumber to use for interior projects in this video right here. And I'm confident it's not gonna be what you think it is. Trust me, you're gonna wanna watch this one, folks. See you there, brother and sister. That mustache. Does that mustache look good? This mustache has to be in tip-top shape for the camera.